Today on the show, I've got a fella that I can really only describe as a living legend, a legend of Brisbane after dark in particular. So Hadyn Butler is a man I met some years ago, and our lives have continued to cross paths through the same things that we enjoy, be it late nights on the town, drifting cars, motorsport, all sorts of fun things, even a bit of wakeboarding back there in the day. But Hadyn, mate, real pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure to be here, my friend.
Now, for people that don't know you, mate, how would you describe the job you do right now?
Let me think. Well, I am a DJ, so I'm still playing music in nightclubs at the tender age of 56 years old. I had a couple of limos, so we run those as well. I've got a couple of friends who also drive for me when I'm not available. And we still do the truck and DJ. So we've got the old school Jeeps with the DJ systems in the back of them. So I guess you'd call me an entrepreneur.
Yeah, entrepreneur. Let's
do that.
It's a selection of businesses. And see, I first met you. I'm going to say on the wheels of steel, but I think they were actually Pioneer CDJs, perhaps.
No, Fridays we're still playing vinyl then.
Oh, Fridays legit.
Yep.
Mate, the OGs.
Old school.
The OGs. So back in the early 00s is where I pleasure of meeting Hadyn for the first time when he was tearing up a wonderful joint here in Brisbane called Fridays. I mean, mate, he's been tearing it up for longer than, I don't know, mate. Is there anybody else that's been letting it rip for as long as you have in Brisbane?
Mate, not really. No, there's other guys that were there when I first started, but they've sort of, more or less dropped off.
Yeah, they went and got real jobs or something?
Yeah, why would I do that?
Yeah, why would you still
What's a real job?
But one thing I have to assume is that obviously you don't wake up, I guess as the number one man in town. Mate, take me back to when you're a young bloke. Were you here locally? You're a Brizzy boy?
Well, I grew up in Beenleigh. So back then I was riding BMX bikes. By the time I was 16, I designed the BMX track that is there now. I got a group of guys together and we approached the local council because they'd given us a block of land. We built a track there, and they ended up giving it back to the school to turn it into a soccer field or something. So we rallied together, went in and gave this councillor a hard time. He gave us this block of land where the track is now and said, all right, go for gold. And it was stacked full of lantana. It had car bodies and stuff in it. It was a mess. But what he didn't realise was the president. I was the vice president of the BMX club at that stage. At like 13, I started with that. And the president was actually a motocross guy who owned Earth Moving. We had that block of land stripped in 2 days, and we were racing on it within 3 weeks. So he thought, oh yeah, this will keep those little buggers out of the way. They're going to be busy for the next 12 months trying to get rid of all the car bodies. We had it cleared and set up within a month.
Oh, get out of town, mate! That's a gold story. Oh. Mate, is there any reflection of that? Like you guys that actually helped put that together? Is there any story of that down there?
I've actually still got the newspaper clipping from the Albert and Logan News. It was myself, Scott Hacks, and Robert Law with the 3 young blokes who got together. We designed the track. We laid everything out. We spent weeks on wacky packies, like patting down all the track. And we pulled that one off. But at the same time, I was also working at the skating rink at Beenleigh. So I started playing roller hockey as well when I was about 13 down the Gold Coast, because my grandma used to live down there and we'd go down there for holidays, and started skating there and met a few of the people. And then I started skating at Beenleigh and ended up being a floor guard there, so a 13-year-old bouncer on wheels. And one day the DJ didn't show up and said, get up there and play some music. And that was the start of my career.
Get out of town, seriously. So they just didn't turn up and you were there.
Yep,
they're like,
figure
it out, kid.
Yep. Forward skating in the general direction.
So how did that go? You were able to figure it out on the spot?
Yeah, it didn't take me too long to realise that I was actually getting shifts as a DJ as well as being a floor guard. Then I went to the Argonaut skating rink in Woodridge. Got a bit of an education down there. It was a bit rough, but, same thing, DJ, floor guard. And then I went to Skateway at Mount Gravatt. And I did that until I started working. I was working full-time for Maya, and I was working 6 nights a week at the Winter Garden Tavern when I first started working in clubs. And I realised that I was earning the same money in a night as I was for a whole week working at mine. I'm like, I've got this the wrong way around. So I handed in my resignation at mine. I was the toys and hobbies manager.
Nice.
That's why I've got RC cars. You know all about that as well.
I
I've got
do.
quite a collection of
We've
those.
done a bit of RC drifting together.
Yes, we have. So yeah, I started at the Winter Garden. I was there for about 4 years, and then another DJ called Peter Tagani. He owns Peter Tagani Hair Salons in Spring Hill. Still cuts my hair to this day. He was at Hot Gossip during '88, during World Expo, and they needed a young bloke to come in there and liven things up. So he dragged me down there, and we were the deadly duo around town for about 5 years, between there and Transformers. Did that as well.
Because that was an area, that was a point in time I actually wanted to dial back in on, because I've seen some of the videos of you like competing as well. Like
the DMC Championships in 1989.
Mate, and see, here we go. Like there's got to be a story here. So back me up before we get into the 90s.
Oh, there's a story.
I want to hear about the DMC Championships, because I've seen this video, and mate, we're going to have to throw this in the show notes so people can see it. This is some mad
gold
stuff. Gold. So talk to me about how that happened.
All right, so all those guys that competed on the night, there's 27 people that competed in the state finals basically, and a couple of the guys who actually come in first and second, I taught them how to mix. So like I was a little bit ahead of them, but they were both hip hop guys, so they knew how to scratch. So they showed me the basics of that, and I used to play around in the clubs and do a little bit of the waka waka kind of stuff through the mixes that I was playing. And then basically I competed in that, got through the finals, and all the other guys actually had a program that they'd been working on for weeks and weeks and weeks. I went down to Hot Gossip, pulled out 20 records, had a little bit of a plan, said, right, that's what I'm going to do. There was no like thought process or anything. I was just like, yeah, if I could put this over that, top that. And I finished off with Pump Up the Volume and Skippy the Bush Kangaroo over the top, going skip, 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 skippy. And the funny thing is that like everyone remembers Skippy. They don't remember who came first, second. I came third that year, but they all remember Skippy the Bush Kangaroo being played at. It was at Transformers in Brisbane.
Dropping bangers at
Dropping bangers
in Brisbane. And for people that predate all these things, can you just explain where Transformers was and how important that was to the Brisbane scene?
Okay, Transformers was an old electricity board building, and a consortium from down south bought it and turned it into this massive nightclub. So they bought a DC-10, and they took pieces of the DC-10 and just distributed it around the venue. It was like a post-apocalyptic kind of scenario inside the venue. The sound system was incredible. There was a DJ console on one side and a lighting console on the other. I think they had a 64-channel light mixer, and everything was amazing. They had a Fairlight video computer thing with I think it was 36 screens or something together up there. It was cutting edge. There was nothing like it anywhere in the state, definitely, and probably in Australia when it first opened up. So a couple of my mates actually opened the club and worked there for a while, and I was approached, headhunted from Hot Gossip down there, and got to play with some incredible people. Beats International, being Norman Cook, who's now known as Fatboy Slim. Who else did I play there with? The B-52s, Deborah Harry, all sorts of crazy people. Like it was a full-on underground dance club, but on a Thursday night, they bring these people in to do like uni groups of parties and stuff like that, so that they target those groups with those kind of acts. It was hectic. Yeah.
And this is the thing that people wouldn't understand. And the only reason, so I missed out on Transformers, but my mum's sister, again back in the day, she was the youngest, and she would go there and would hear stories about going to Transformers, and like that place was where it's at. And it's at basically where the barracks is now. It's one of those buildings.
No, it was down on Charlotte Street.
Charlotte Street.
Yeah, so the old
places confused.
Fernbell gyms, is that right? The lady.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it turned into a gym, and I think it's been bulldozed now and built into a high rise.
Oh, you're kidding.
No. but it was an incredible venue. The other thing that was really different was, like, they did lots of different stuff.
Yeah.
For instance, they had a group of actors who used to put on little shows around the room. We had hairdressers in the ladies' toilets.
Really?
Yeah.
So you get your hair done?
And makeup artists. It was so cutting edge, mate. The main bar upstairs had a barber's chair, and we used to do laybacks in the chair.
What?
And drag people out at 100 miles an hour. Whole lot of fun.
It sounds like, and I mean, that sounds like a whole different world. And did you keep doing the DMC championships as well with that?
I did the next year. I played halfway through my mix. I actually walked out with my girlfriend at the time, who was a 6'1" blonde model. She was passing me records, and everyone was just shaking their heads because, you know, she was gorgeous. I went all right back then. I scrubbed up okay, but
Can't imagine, mate. I've seen that again. The footage. You very dashing man. Not that much has changed. Now it's just a little bit more regal
and a little bit more wide load.
Oh, turn up. So, smashing it in Transformers, playing with soon to be Fatboy Slim. What was sort of the progression as you went through that time?
Well, mate, I was there for about 2.5 years, I think, from memory. And then at some point, the two owners, there was a pair of brothers who were in real estate down in Melbourne, and another guy who owned Adams Car Parks internationally. He was, I think he might have been a Saudi or something like that. He lived on a yacht, and he'd come into town every now and then, and there's some sort of animosity between the two. The bank got wind of what was going and put Dewsbury accountants in as mediators to a place that was making 75 grand on a Thursday night back in, 1991?
Far out.
Yeah, let alone Friday, Saturday night. So
you'd buy half of Brisbane for that much money.
Back then, yeah, definitely. So they got, the owners were never going to see eye to eye. It was just, it had gone too far. So they came in, they took an accountant's knife to all of the everything that was happening there, and they came to me and said, "You either take a 50% pay cut, or you're not employed here anymore." I was like, "Well, I'm the reason why you're making all that money, so why would you do that? But okay, have a nice day, and I'll go work somewhere else." So I ended up in Cairns at the end of the world for about, I think it was about 2 years.
And when was that? Was that midnight?
That would have been about 92, 93.
So early 90s. And
yeah.
It was up there still backpacker crazy central.
Oh, it was insane, mate. Anytime I had a day off, I'd either be scuba diving on the reef or bungee jumping or whitewater rafting. Like, there was so many awesome things to do. And those people will come into our venue and do like promos in the venue. So the bungee guys had this horizontal bungee thing involving a plastic glass of beer that you had to run and grab and drink before you got slungshot back into the wall. It was amazing. It was so much fun up there.
Mate, one of the best nights I've ever had is a place up at Ely called Magnum's. Do the foam party.
Yep.
I'd never seen anything like that until I went there. And like, mate, this joint is covered like it's above your head with foam. I've never seen anything like that. That place, it's madness up there.
They had two of those. There were two Magnums up in Cairns as well. So there was Magnums and Magnums too up there at the same time. I'm not exactly sure whether they're still there or not, to be honest. I may have sort of, pulled the plug out there. I'm not sure.
I was up there a year or so ago, and I actually drove past it and was like, Magnums. Yeah, no, I'm a bit old for it now. That's not really my jam anymore. But at the time, what a spot. So you've spent a bit of time up there. You've gone to the tropics. You obviously didn't stay there.
No, I was up there for about 1.5 years, 2 years, and then the owner of the venue decided he was going to try and hardball me on the pay again. So I was like, well, okay, fair enough. Yeah. I'll go back to Brisbane. So hired a truck, loaded all my gear, because I had, I think, about 20 crates of records up there. Everything was vinyl back then. Loaded all in the truck with my clothes, and I bought a mountain bike to keep myself fit, doing downhills and stuff while I was up there as well. I actually took I did the first Garanda downhill, which was pretty exciting, on a hardtail, what was it?
Wow.
Well, I'm BMX background.
Yeah, so, okay, so you don't notice it, whereas I'm soft as butter, mate. Dual suspension if you go down.
Yeah, I bought, it was a GT Avalanche.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so bought that, met some of the guys doing the mountain riding up there, took them to the BMX track. and showed them how to jump canyons and stuff on a mountain bike. They were pretty excited about that. Because most of them were used to just doing this. I'd be throwing a bike all over the place because, from BMX background.
And what's the trick to actually doing that? You just got to send it harder?
You've got to send it harder, and you've got to time it, yeah. Like, if you throw it too hard, you're going to end up overshooting the jump.
Yeah. So you got to get it, like, just in that sweet spot where you can, I guess, judge the distance and you know how hard you got to push it to clear.
Get it to carry it.
Again, I don't have
same as motocross, same as drifting as well. It's all about timing and
timing and feel.
Yeah.
See, that I understand. So we're in the where are we up to? We're in the late 90s here.
No, we're still in the early 90s.
In the early 90s. Oh, this is fantastic. All right, so we're in the early 90s.
I'm in Kansas. Oh, mate,
you've loaded up. Yep. Yeah, it's the pay dispute again.
Yep. So I'm heading back to Brisbane, and I get this phone call from old mate. He said, "Can you stay for another 6 months? I'll give you a pay rise." And at that stage, I made a commitment to come back to Brisbane and work at Lexington Queen, which was Hot Gossip renamed and repackaged. So I went back there, worked there for about 6 months, and then got offered Easy Street in Ipswich. Did that for, I think, about 3 or 4 years. Might have been 3 years. And we had all the, when E Street, the TV show, was going, that kind of stuff. We had the guy, Marcus Graham and Tony Perrin and all these other, all these, TV stars, all the guys off Hey Hey It's Saturday, including Pluck It Up.
That's cool.
He was fun to work with. Me, him, and a couple of bottles of tequila at the front of the bar, at the front of the stage, pouring into people's throats. That was lots of fun. See, back then there wasn't anything like what we have now as responsible.
No, it'd be pretty loose. But there also wasn't as much coverage. So,
true.
If you're misbehaving, it wasn't as probably widely distributed.
You'd hear it by name and not by nature on the mobile phone the next morning. Yeah,
which is much safer. And let's face it, mate, Daryl Summers, Red Simons, mate, those boys, that was peak. That was peak Australia. Saturday night, the whole family would sit down and watch it together. That's actually really hard to explain now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like that the family would sit down at, 6 o'clock on a Saturday night and for 3 hours watch Hey Hey It's Saturday.
And religiously as well.
Religiously.
You're doing something anywhere on a Saturday, that's where you'd end up. You'd be at home or at a friend's place at a party watching Hey Hey It's Saturday.
And see that quote from the council, doesn't make gong him red. There's a whole generation now that don't even know what we're talking about here.
Yeah, well, they have been doing a few sort of greatest hits kind of shows with that recently that I've noticed. I think there was one on about 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, I did see that they had another crack. I think they did try to revive it, but it's lost the sparkle.
It's done its time, and it's
ain't what you used to be. That's all right.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. That was a cultural phenomenon. Okay, so more star power back here. So that was in Ipswich.
Ipswich, Easy Street. Yep.
Easy Street, and then.
Then I ended up. I got offered a job by Nigel Kilvington.
Big Nige.
What a dead set legend he is.
What a legend. We have nothing but the maddest respect for Mr. Kilvington, and the reason that I've got a lot of love for him. There's actually in this there'd be a lot of people in Brisbane actually that have big love for that man. That was actually there's a gift in my office that was from the. From that fraternity, and interestingly, we also have one of the CDJs from France.
Right.
I actually got it here in the
awesome.
in the Hall of Fame. So again, for people that don't know, Big Nige, do you want to back that one up and tell us the story?
Mate, he was the original general manager at Friday's Riverside. He was involved with Bella Hotel Group for I think 30-something years, and I worked with him for 25 years at Friday's. Amazing guy. Knew everyone. I think he might have been president of the hoteliers, Queensland Hoteliers group as well at one point there. But just a really, really interesting guy to get to know. And when it comes to business and entertainment and hospitality, I consider him one of my mentors.
I couldn't argue with that because that man, you watched him work. And that was a man that had a work ethic and, I guess a moral compass that, you could do nothing but respect.
True.
So, weapon of a man. Okay, so Fridays, because Fridays for me, I mean, mate, that was that stretch of time there, I associate you and Fridays as almost one and the same because, like, you were the man holding the roof up. You know, we were there on the dance floor, and it's DJ Hados
and tearing it down at the same time. It was insane, mate. Thursday nights there, the uni groups, we used to get 4,500, 5,000 people through there on a Thursday night.
Well, that's when I started coming.
Yeah,
because we're sort of into the for when our stories are. We're in the late 90s, early 00s.
That's great.
Yeah, and I mean, mate, it was just the place to be. Because here in Brisbane, it's right on the river. You're looking out over the Story Bridge. Like,
beautiful
it's
spot.
Amazing spot. It's got the big trees that come out over it. You got this indoor and outdoor, and like it's just heaven. Like we attribute a lot of even our early business success to Fridays because like we didn't have any clients, nobody knew who we were, and so we'd go to Fridays, and we used to do work for them in the early days of our business, and we would quite often, gee up a bar tab. And like that's where we do all our business. Like that's where we meet people.
Perfect.
Was just going to Fridays. But I digress. So Fridays wasn't just a pumping success.
Yeah,
sort of right from the get go.
Obviously, while I was working there, I was also playing in other venues. Like I was working down at Coco's at Broadbeach there for quite a while on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I also did Tuesday nights and Fridays for quite a while with the they used to do a cocktail night, which was
dangerous.
Yeah, you pay, I think it was $25 or something here, and then there's food, but there's also certain drinks and stuff that are included in that $25. That was a very, very interesting night, that one. Lots of drunk people, lots of fun. Obviously, you couldn't get away with it these days.
No, these were slightly looser days. These were back when there were dollar drinks and you could buy 20 rum and cokes for $20.
20-cent test tubes, or 50-cent test tubes.
Yeah,
all sorts of crazy stuff.
Just genuinely a different
era,
a different time, far more irresponsible. And but also people were still smoking inside. It was it was a very different time where you go out and you just bloody stink,
and you come home smelling like I've never smoked.
Yeah.
But I'd come home, and when I first woke up the next day, I'd feel a bit hungover or something, even if I didn't drink. It took me years to realise that it was from the passive smoking. Because I get back to work the next day, and I'll be working, and I'll be like pumping and all excited and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, why don't I feel like that when I wake up? It's because of the passive smoking.
It was the guards.
Yeah. But I also did, whilst I was at Fridays, I did some work with Regatta, I did some work with Chalk, I did Monastery as well, Birdie Num Nums, and it got to a point at one stage there.
Oh, hang on, we've got our little guest here. Hey, thanks, buddy. Now, this is a real family show. I've got the boy. Thank you, mate.
Giving that to you.
Morning, young fella.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye, Dad.
See you, mate.
He's a bit confused because my morning is everybody else's afternoon.
That's classic. So we've just had, I had a real humdinger today. I've turned up to do my podcast and didn't have my power pack. So what I've done is I've literally messaged my wife while we were mid-show going, I've really cooked this. Would you mind bringing it in?
Your lovely wife,
then,
who I also met
my beautiful wife, who you met at Fridays in the 90s with me.
Did I introduce you to?
Oh, look, I don't know if you can be held responsible for that because we did actually meet in the 90s. She was a song girl. I was a churchy boy. It was a classic Brisbane love story. We met through mutual friends that we're still friends with today, and
excellent.
Hilarious. Oh, you know them quite well. One Mr. James Barley.
Oh yeah.
So
the fly boy,
mate. That's how our stories interlink. So there. All right. Now we've got some power. I don't have to be nervous about my battery pack cutting out because I sort of set this up to roll, and I'm like, yellow.
Are we going to make it?
Yellow. Are we going to make it? And I'm watching the power go down. I'm like, we're not going to make it.
So this could be a big one, mate.
I've done the Hail Mary, and look, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Is there's so much to unpack.
Yeah.
So you're working everywhere, and I even remember that. And look, they're pretty blurry memories, I'll be honest with you. But as you talk about Chalk and Monastery and all these amazing places that we existed at through that time, like mate, they were good days. Because again, this was sort of pre-serious mobile phone. It was like it was those last phases of, I guess, what our generation would call the glory days. Like there's very little proof of
not much left anymore. Well, Monastery's closed down. Birdie's is still there, but it's a little bit different these days. At Monastery, I was actually pretty lucky. I got to play with Judge Jules, quite a few of the Ministry of Sound guys there. Also, Darude,
That's
the guy that does Sandstorm. He had 2 hits at that stage.
Yeah.
Sandstorm and Feel the Beat. He played them both 3 times in his set. But, mate, if you got a worldwide hit like that, why the hell wouldn't you?
Look, I wouldn't be offended hearing that a couple of times in a row.
I still play remixes of that to this very day.
Oh, because it holds a roof up, and particularly if you see blokes looking out our age, they'll be like, oh, mate, they're going to start, woo! Oh, you're always going to get the woo out of us.
That is true. So around about probably late 90s, I'm always getting phone calls from people asking if I'm available to DJ, and I'd be palming off work to everybody. I thought to myself, maybe I should start my little agency. So Truckin' DJs was born. At first, it was called Team Tonka. It was at that point we'd also bought my first Jeep. So I bought this 1974 CJ5 Jeep, 360 AMC V8 in it. Likes to pull wheel stands, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, how can I do that and write off on tax? I know, I put a set of decks on the back of it. Winning. So, and that started the whole Truckin' DJs thing. So then I started farming boys out and girls out to all venues all over Southeast Queensland. At one point, we had over 20 venues we were dealing with and over 40 DJs. And I was only charging, I think, 18 or 15%. So if I remember the early days, I was working at a couple of places. I did some time at Komodo Club in the Carlton Crest. The guy who was running the DJs there was getting paid $100 an hour. This is back in about, it's been 93, 94. It was just after I'd left Easy Street and I'd started working at Fridays. I'd done a couple of fill-in shifts at Fridays, but I hadn't started there full time. So I went down there and I think I was getting paid $30 an hour and he's taking 70 and he wasn't even working there.
It's a bit spicy.
Yeah, so I didn't like that. And so I thought I'm not going to do the same thing when I start my own little agency. So that went pretty well for us for quite a while. We ended up with 3 Jeeps at one stage there, and we were like, there was gear and cars and people and promo girls and God knows what else going everywhere. Obviously, Fast Fours and Rotaries Jamboree, that was a big event for us. Million Paws Walk for the RSPCA, we used to do that every year as well. We're still doing Powercruise with Augusta.
Because were you there since day one?
I wasn't there from day one. He got me around 98, 99, I think he recruited me. So it was about, we did our first Jamboree with the Jeeps, and he'd spotted us out there and said, oh, you want to come and do our event as well? I'm like, oh, yeah, what are you doing? And he explained it to me, and wow, what an event that is. So we started doing stuff with him as well. At that stage, I also had my Skyline, the 33. So I had a 33, I had a couple of dirty old vans. We used to, like 4-wheel drive vans, we'd stack full of gear. Did a few beach parties with those as well. That was a whole lot of fun. And then drifting came in my life, I guess, is the next thing.
And before we jump to drifting, for people that might not understand Powercruise, because look, I'm lucky to have people that listen from different parts of the world. Do you want to try and explain the concept of Powercruise?
Absolutely. So Powercruise is a 3-day event. They do have a couple of 1-day short events at the beginning of the year, just as a teaser, so everybody doesn't get over it, but or miss it too much. But it's a 3-day event. You get out there, and it's we take the whole racetrack. So they do drag racing, they do drifting, they do burnouts, they do power skids. There's show and shine on display. There's merchandisers out there selling stuff. It's basically a Lollapalooza for motorsport, and it's just an incredible weekend. Like they'll get anything up to 1,500 entrants. That's people with their cars, but then you'll get 15,000 people out there sometimes to watch the event. So if you've got a cracker of a weekend, you've got people camping out there all weekend. We do the off-track entertainment for them, so we play music and run amok and play games with the kids, and if there's somebody who's being a bit annoying, we'll take him to task and make him do something silly for a t-shirt, and that normally ends up on Facebook. Yeah, it's just an amazing weekend, and it's families. It's you can bring your kids along as well. Kids under 13 are free as well, which is an awesome thing. 6th of May actually is the next Power Play. It's a one-day event, and it's like a whole weekend's worth of stuff packed into one weekend. Or one day, I should say.
There you go. Cheap plug to Powercruise. Because you can, and if you've never seen a power skid before, because I don't think anybody does burnouts and power skids like Australians.
No,
I think we're the kings of that.
Yeah, well, burnouts, I'll explain that for you if you like.
Please.
So it's judged on speed. So when you bring the car in, they want to see you take a big entry and flick the car in at the beginning. They call that a tip-in. They want you to keep control of the car and cover the whole of the burnout pad. So the more real estate you cover, the more power, the more points you get. Immediate smoke when you get on the gas. So they want to see smoke billowing out of the back of the car as soon as you hit it. Technique. So they want to see a certain amount of skill. They don't want you to just go out there and lose control and smash into the wall and all that kind of stuff. They want to see that you're trying to control, and you can keep something in control that is totally out of control.
And that's why.
And that's burnouts. Oh yeah.
And then the power skid.
Okay.
Would you like to explain that?
The power skid is normally run down the front straight of either Queensland Raceway or down in Sydney at Eastern Creek, Sydney Motorsport Park now for our new listeners. And basically what happens there is you get on the start line and you dump the car in whatever gear, and you can't be riding on the brake. You have to be on the throttle, and the power skid goes from the point of where you leave the start line to wherever the back wheels stop producing smoke. And you've got 1,500 horsepower cars out there that are just blowing the bags off their cars from one end of the straight to the other. I don't even know how they judge it, because it'd be so close from some of those guys.
Again, madness. Get yourself on YouTube, do yourself a favour, have a look at power skids, and mate, you're in for an education. So
that is true.
Because were you always into the cars stuff as well? Was that?
Well,
because we're certainly entering that period of your life where you realise, hang on, I can actually mix all these things together.
Yeah. Well, remember when I told you that I was working for Maya, then working full time in clubs and all that kind of stuff, and actually playing roller hockey for Mount Gravatt as well. We came third in the championships one year, in the Australian New Zealand Club Championships, which was a big feather in our caps back then. I also had I bought a Celica Supra, brand new in 1984, and I had that car for about 14 years. It was like giving away my childhood when I got rid of it, but at the time I had my young bloke, Josh, who, he's still kicking around. Joy Break is who he's known as now, because he's also a drifter.
He's a legend.
Yeah, little champion. And his mother couldn't drive stick, so I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going to have to let go of this car after all these years of doing stuff that I didn't realise was drifting back then. We were just mucking around up in Mount Tamborine, growing up in Beenleigh. What else would you do?
Allegedly.
Yeah, no, Mexico.
In Mexico,
yeah,
south of the border.
So, but I didn't really start drifting seriously until Option One Garage approached me about taking the Jeeps down and doing the drifting event that they were starting at Archerfield. Paulie met me at Jamboree because he had somebody's car out there that was drag racing. Might have been Jerome Kennedy, I think. And I thought, okay, that sounds like fun. And he's like, you've got a Skyline. Yes. Now, I bought that car, and it was a 95, and I think I bought it in 99. So it was 4 or 5 years old when I got it. He said, well, why don't you drift it? I said, I don't know. He said, give me the car. So I gave it to Paul. He threw him the keys. He took the car for a week, and it come back with the Pexi coilovers and all set up. Still running, like we had a front mount intercooler on, but it's still running the standard turbo. And he said, well, you learn how to drive this. It only had about 180 horsepower when I first started. Learn how to drive this and we'll give you some more ponies, but you've got to learn how to use the weight of the car and the momentum to get it around the track. And I proceeded to hit everything that didn't move and did move. cost me a small fortune, bumper bars and guards until I worked it out. And then it was like, this isn't that hard.
And then, drifting sort of made it a little bit more mainstream these days. But explain to people the cultural landscape back then. I mean, drifting was nowhere.
No, there was you had the Full Lock Drift Nationals, which we also did the entertainment for. We travelled all over Australia with those guys. That was always a good weekend away. And I used to take promo girls with us, a couple of DJs, including Stu Duffy, was his soul. He passed away a few years ago. And basically play tunes on the hill, and then the after parties were always out of control. So probably the very last one we did, I was still working at Monastery, and it was a Sunday out at Queensland Raceway, and the boys had booked, back then it would have been GPO, and it was dead on a Sunday night. And they were like stressing because they had these Japanese drivers over, and they had quite an entourage. And they came to me and said, "Hadyn, what can we do? We know Melbourne and Sydney, but we don't know what's going on in Brisbane." So I made two calls and found out that the after party for the Black Eyed Peas was up at Monastery that night. So we took 100 people straight up the street into the club, and
good night.
Continued to cut loose. And there were some photos that came. I don't know who took them. But there were photos floating around of one of the Japanese drivers with Fergie dancing on the bass speakers at the Monastery on a Sunday night. So.
That is loose. See, I knew you'd have some good stories. When was this? What's the year here?
Oh, that would have been early 2000s at that stage. Yeah.
That's gold. So you were really into, because, I mean, this was drifting was, coming out of Japan and just finding, like, super grassroots support. I mean, this was early days of drifting in Australia, where people were like, "Sideways burnouts? What are you doing?"
Yeah, well, you had people like obviously Dan Keneally, Afro, Darren Appleton, the guy who built my 86, actually, Joshy Young. You had who else was driving at that stage? Oh, obviously Cameron Hill. He was amazing back then. Then you had people like Leighton Fine and all these other guys from all over the country. But we had a fairly solid group of blokes who were just absolutely cooking it. Keneally, Dan Keneally, he's an amazing driver.
Superstar.
Rob White, he sort of came into the picture a little bit later. Like those guys were all at Queensland Raceway when Archie first started off. Robbie Manfield and his brother.
Those boys are killing it.
Lunatics.
Yeah.
Lunatics. And mate, we all just sort of got along together. And Joshy Newsom as well, and his rotary RX-7 with that we actually painted yellow and put truck and DJ stickers all over.
Excellent.
Yeah, so there was this core group of blokes who were just gun drivers. Josh Pendling was another one. There was just so many of them. And we all come out and started playing around at Archie, and a lot of the guys like Cameron Hill and both the Joshes, Newson and also Joshy Young, jumped in the car with me, along with Paulie from Offshore One, Paul Williamson, who's an amazing driver, and sort of got me doing what I had to do to get it all together. And they're like, well, come and drive with us. So we ended up driving in the Pro Tour for Raceline at some point there as well, just chasing each other around. And it's been an amazing trip,
And I mean, sadly, so Archfield, the place that you're talking about, so back then it was just a go-kart track, wasn't it?
That's correct, yeah.
And it's actually in its final days. If I understand all this properly, so the Speedway's been sold, which means that's sold. Mm-hmm. And Luke Fink, who is again another superstar of Australian drifting, he's been running it the last few years, and I mean, he's actually turned it into almost a world famous destination.
It's a drivable track now. Like when it first started out, it was very tight. There was car tires to map out the track. So if you mucked up, there were quite a few cars that actually hit those tire walls and ended up on their roofs. Whereas with Luke's input, he's an amazing driver. He's had so much experience. He's a really lovely bloke too.
Oh, awesome.
If you ever need help, he's always there. advice, same thing. You know, he's just an amazing guy. And he's done a wonderful job with that track because it was a go-kart track. And yeah, he's changed the lay of the land. He's added extra parts to it so that we can get more speed out of it. Like, you could never do third gear on that track before he started doing stuff on it. So,
and that was the thing, he transformed it. He put, like the Nico dropping stuff in there as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'm like, you're just the best. Like, it was everything that place ever needed to become incredible, because he just the earth to get, all the earthworks in and got the asphalt done. Like, he just got it done.
Yeah, I've actually got a photo of my 33 on 3 wheels going through that drop.
Nice. So this was like early days of drifting, early days of Archerfield, because it used to be, because I remember the like Bugs days and stuff, like, because I used to run the go-karts there as a business.
That's right.
Whereas that eventually did get phased out.
Yeah, well, basically the guy who was running that is now running a racetrack up north. I think might be in Barryborough. Barry Pierce.
How could we forget Barry?
He's a nice bloke.
Mate, good fella. Good fella.
I actually helped him with a few different things with the track. Like, he did a few events where he needed somebody to come and play some music and do some background stuff. And yeah, over the years.
Yeah, and but I think it's also hard to explain how important Archerfield has been. So the drift track there, to making Queensland and southeast Queensland in particular, the joke is that we're the drift state, because there were very few places where you could go drifting very often, whereas Archerfield drift track would run every Thursday night religiously, like all year. Then there were comps.
It used to be Wednesday and comps on a Friday night.
Yeah. So it was non-stop. So you could go drifting a couple of times a week.
Correct.
Which was why we had such a strong scene.
It wasn't as expensive as what it is to spend a day out of QR or somewhere like that, because before you even get there, you've got a tank full of fuel and a 100 series Land Cruiser to drag your car out there. So you're out of pocket $100 before you even do anything.
And an incredible number of people would drive their road registered cars to Archerfield.
Yep. Well, my 33 was one of the last cars that was driven in the Pro Tour that was still registered. So I was driving to the track, competing all day, and then, changing the tyres and driving the car home it would have been at Oxley at that stage. I remember one day actually down at, because I used to run stadium drift down at the Gold Coast at Parklands.
Which was amazing.
Yeah, that was so much fun. Only a little tight track, but it means you could really put it on each other.
And it had elevation change as well. And if you weren't into drifting back then, Parklands was actually, it's across the road from where the University Hospital is now on the Gold Coast. And they built a ton of accommodation there for, was it Commonwealth Games?
It was a Commonwealth Games, yeah.
So basically this track got wiped out. But it was an amazing place. And again, at its peak, they had, motocross there, and they had a full drifting field, and like that, they were some of the best days.
Yeah, some show and shine stuff. We had burnouts there as well. Actually, somewhere on my phone, I've got saved me doing a burnout in the 33, and then Josh Young rolling out in his 86, which was red back then. It's now yellow and belongs to me. So one after the other, chucking a burnout at Parklands, because we competed all day, and then they did a burnout comp. And was like, let's go do a skid. Something different.
What's really quite crazy, I actually had a little handheld JVC video camera, and these were the days when I was actually learning like photography and film and stuff. So I just go to drifting because we go all the time, and it's easy and cheap and fun. And I've actually got a ton of footage from Parklands. I've actually got an absolute stack, and I've still got it. I should probably actually throw it on the internet. But yeah, I've got a stack of stuff from drifting down there.
Awesome. Yeah, some of the cars that were on display out there, and the FMX guys that come out and do stuff as well. It was just an awesome weekend out.
It was just, the best. It was like your X Games style stuff.
Yeah, well, Ian, who used to run it, did a wonderful job of it. He's still floating around. He's got a mechanic shop down on the Gold Coast at Bundle, actually.
Yeah, because he had that back then.
Yes, he did.
And he did wonderful things for the sport of drifting, because we had, I guess, what would be the best feeder program, because we had people just coming and playing at Archerfield, And then there was, that race line competition that ran around Southeast Queensland.
Yeah.
And so guys would go from, just backyarding and a little bit of weekend stuff, then a little bit of fun on the shorter track stuff. And then, as you got better, you go and do QR because you need so much more power.
Yeah.
And skill to be able to drift in Queensland Raceway.
You really need to have a set to be throwing it around that track because you're carrying a lot of speed. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll end up in the sand trap on its roof or under the wall at the side, which I've probably covered most of those places over my period in time.
Yeah, you can have a pretty bad time when that stuff goes wrong.
Beached as broke.
Because these, and for me personally, these were like glory days of drifting, like 07 to 2013 thereabouts.
Yeah.
Like, mate, they are some of the best years of my life because that was when so there was a national drifting series that wound up in 2007, which is the one you're talking about. And for people that were reading Hot Fours and Fast Fours and stuff back there, you'd remember like the Team Pier cars. There was just all this mad stuff back then, and then it all sort of folded. And then there was quite a few years there where there was no national competition.
Yeah, that would have been the full Opera Nationals you're talking about.
Yeah, correct.
Option One Garage had cars in that. That would have been Robbie Mountfield and Jerome, obviously. Jerome Kennedy, he was an incredible driver.
Yeah, and that was when so Ivan had High Power Racing. And he
That's
put
great.
That car together.
Yeah.
Like that lime green S15.
Yep.
I remember seeing that the first time and just going, holy shit. Like that was the first time I'd seen a built drift car.
Yeah.
And like Ivan out of High Power, he did some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen.
Yep, he's still floating around.
Actually,
I saw him at the beach a couple of weeks back.
Tackles him.
Exactly.
Mate, he's
Mad fisherman.
Mad fisherman. So he left that crazy workshop life behind. No, I still follow all of it.
Lovely chap.
But that was the first time I saw a built drift car. Was that one that he made for Jerome Kennedy for that national series? Because everybody else was full blown grassroots backyard.
Yeah, like
stuff.
the main things that people did, like we won't muck around with knuckles back then or anything like that. What do you want to do that for? Just put a set of coilovers that make the car handle good and
send it.
Yeah, play around with your tyre pressures depending on whether you need more or less grip, and away we go, sort of thing. But
yeah, mate, they were the best days because they went, and then there was we'd do the trips down to, was it Tamworth? Or no, what was the, where did we go? The bloody sheep.
We did go to Tamworth.
That freezing cold place in the middle of winter.
Stanthorpe.
Stanthorpe, even worse than that.
Carnell Raceway. Carnell Raceway is an amazing track.
Yeah, that is actually but we'd go to all these awesome places. As you said, it's like just this bunch of legends. and we'd go and have this great time. You're competing all day, but then you're all going out together at night and, having a beer and having a steak. And
yep. Stanthorpe was always a standout weekend away because, we get down there on the Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, we'd go and have something to eat, and we'd always end up at the nightclub until 4 o'clock in the morning or something, go back to the hotels, get 3 or 4 hours sleep. And then we'd go down, we'd be there an hour before anybody else because we'd set up the sound system and all that kind of stuff so we could play music and do the commentary of the event. And then everyone would start turning up, and there'd always be a few green around the gills people, if you know what I mean. It's a big night out.
Mate, drifting really stole our hearts, didn't it?
Mate, loved it. I still do. I've still got the Skyline. That's in pieces right now because I put a leg out about at Queensland Raceway doing the demos with Powercruise about 2 years ago. So did a deal with Hadyn Dick Finney from Kamikaze Motorsport. And at some point, he's going to build me a new engine for the 33. So you will see the return of that. And the 86 is, we put a new set of valve springs in it because it was getting a bit sort of tired and it just didn't want to run. So, but we're building a forward bottom end for that. And between putting performance valve springs in and a set of cams, we're thinking it's going to make around the 450 at the rears. It's got independent throttle bodies and trumpets up top, same as what Josh Young had when he originally built it. But yeah, that out of a car that weighs 900 kilos, it's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Because what year is your 86? This is an OG 86.
It's a 1984 two-door Corolla. So they came, Joshy, my son, Josh Goldbrick from Joybreak, he's got a purple one, which his is 11, so it's got the square headlights. and it's still got the 4H in it. So the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder 1600 cc engine. And he goes out and plays around at Archie all the time. He was actually out there last week. So, you know, imagine taking a car like that and shoehorning a V8 out of a Lexus into a little car like that. It just screams its head off. And with a decent set of, it's got a forged bottom end going to this new motor. We should be able to push it out to 8.5.
Oh,
So it is going to scream its
that's
head
going to
off.
sound so good.
I can't wait.
Because you've got to be able to make it to the big boy tracks now.
That's exactly
now
right.
that we're losing our beloved Archer field.
Yeah, well, at 250, which is what like a standard One New Zealand will make in that little car, you can get it around, but it's a bit sort of, you know, it gets to the top of the legs, especially if you're chasing someone who's got 500 or 600 horsepower in an S13 or something like that, you know. So, and also that little car, it's a very different car to drive. A lot of the drivers have said to me over the years, "Oh, can I take a lap in it?" Because it's infamous, you know. Joshy Young did an amazing job of driving that car over the years, and people jump in it and they don't realise it's got no power steering for starters. So it's like driving a VHF boat. You've got to commit and you've got to be on the throttle the whole time. You use the throttle to actually drive the car around the track, which also means if it grips up or you get a bit hesitant or something, it'll smack you into the wall. So normally the bloke who says, "Oh yeah, can I have a drive?" You give them the keys. They'll get in it and they'll try and get it out of the pit area, and they go, "You know."
That separates the kids from the big boys.
Oh yeah, and it's one of those cars. You know how they say elbows out? It's definitely an elbows out car.
It's a good looking thing. And you've maintained that for a long time. How long have you had that one?
Mate, I've had that must be 8 or 9 years now, I guess. Yeah. Like right now, as I said, the engine was tired, so we're going to try and freshen the original motor that's in it up, which is just a wrecker motor anyway. Whilst we're trying to build this forged bottom end for it. But in the meantime, we've put Techno-Tune toy 4-link in the back of it, 0 Ackerman knuckles in it. It's got Shockworks shocks all through it. We just did a whole new fuel system. Like it had the original fuel tank in it still, and it was starting to fall apart, and was putting stuff into the fuel line. So we put a new braided fuel line all the way up the length of the car and put a cell in the back of it. So we're slowly but surely bringing it into the what are we in now? The 20s, I guess.
Yeah, the roaring 20s.
The roaring 20s.
Yeah, we're currently going through total economic and societal collapse. So hopefully we'll see some roaring off the back end of these 20s.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Mate, you don't have to tell me anything about that. Through the, obviously being a DJ, the government didn't support the entertainment industry when the COVID come through.
Mate,
so,
as somebody who also works in and around the arts, they shut the bed pretty hard.
Yep, it wasn't good. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do here? I'm either going to have to sell my kidneys, sell everything I own, and just live off whatever, my equipment and stuff, or find a job. And luckily for me, the Gut from Powercruise, he was starting out a trucking business. He called me up and said, "Hey, I hear you're looking for work. You're looking to do something because what was going on?" And I said, "Yeah, what have you got in mind?" Because Gut's always an interesting person to work for. You never know from what direction he's coming or where we're going with it. But so you should come drive trucks for me. And I said, "Trucks? I don't have a truck license." He said, "You'll have one in 2 weeks." Okay. So I went and it took me a week to get my truck license. And that was it. I was delivering for Lloyd's Auctions, anything from lounge suites and fridges to cars. Now, the old wheels, the old knees aren't so good anymore. So it was a little bit tough on me, but it did me a lot of good because it proved to me that I was still physical enough to be able to do that kind of stuff, even though it was a bit painful, obviously. It got me to drop 28 kilos in about, must have taken me less than 12 months. So I call it the Gusta diet. And, I'm none the worse off for it. And I made enough money to be able to navigate my way through COVID, which was absolutely catastrophic for the hospitality and entertainment industry.
That was terrible. Like all the stuff I've ended up doing when I was working before the arts business and that, and they decimated that and basically didn't consider it a real job.
No.
And it was just tough luck.
They were quite happy to tax you 80 grand a year for doing
Yeah.
the job that you're doing, but when it came to actually supporting, they'd rather double up on the pot smokers and
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that everybody on the
no.
dollars is, but there is a certain percentage of people that really didn't deserve to get that.
And I think that was the hardest part, was watching, very hard-working people that have sacrificed, so much to be performers, just, hung out to dry.
Yeah.
I thought that was really sad, because I've certainly come to appreciate how much art and performance and song and dance contribute to, separating us from the animals. We make art, and it's something so beautiful, it's something to celebrate. And to watch what the government did there.
Yeah, it was a little bit disappointing on their behalf, but look, at the end of the day, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I must be the Hulk by now, I reckon.
Mate, you must be the Hulk. Yeah, you'd be able to bench press a couple of players. I was also interested I was interested to come back and talk to you about the I guess what I could only refer to as the end of days, when we discovered that Fridays was going to wind up. And you as titan of industry that we only knew from all those days, that was your main job at that time, wasn't it?
It was, mate. I was working 4 nights a week there. The venue, the Queensland government came in with a knee-jerk reaction to a horrible situation where a young fella got killed by some Kiwis in the valley, and apparently it turned out they were illegal immigrants, and it was just a mess. And the young bloke was actually a regular for us at Fridays. His whole family, his father worked nearby and was there every Friday afternoon, and his brother as well. So the government turned around and started making it shut at 2 o'clock and 1 o'clock and lockouts and all this kind of stuff, which cost the venues money, but it also gave us a 30% pay cut overnight. Now, not only us, but also the venue owners, the managers, everyone was losing out. Let's think about this for a tick. What sort of people work behind the bars?
No, that has housed uni students for as long as the world can remember.
So let me think. Uni students, what are they studying? Doctors, lawyers, accountants, all those kind of people that they needed that work to be able to afford to pay for their university degrees, and them as well. 30% out of their paycheck overnight. No thought process towards that whatsoever. It was a knee-jerk reaction, and it was a horrible thing that happened. But you can't blame the venues for that.
No, and that was another decimation of whether or not that was strategic.
Well, what that did was knocked a lot of the smaller operators, the people like the guy that owned the Normanby Hotel. He just got fed up with the hierarchy and the malarkey that was going on with licensing, and they were giving him a really hard time. And even Fridays, we had licensing down there doing noise tests in an empty venue on a Monday night with still air, with no bodies in the place to absorb the sound, and that's where our sound levels were set. So they just made things way too difficult for everybody. And then when Oz Venue Company came into the picture, and made them an offer, they decided to step away from the venue. So, the hotel group sold out. There's another consortium who bought Normanby. We used to all the music festivals there. So, supply some of the DJs and do the sound production. Graham Fisher, another mate of mine, he and I used to team up, and we'd do 5 stages worth of DJ equipment and sound and lighting and stuff. And that all disappeared overnight when the venue was sold and they decided to go for a different market.
It's brutal, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's part of the business, I guess. But
yeah,
it all came down to the turning point for all of that was the legislation with the lockout laws and all that kind of stuff. That really just buried nightlife in Brisbane City. And look at what's going on in town right now. Oz Venue Company now have the lease on the Stocky as well. Yep, Woolworths or ALH are out of that now. It's really sad to see the way things are going, And it used to be, you still got Blackbird there and a few other places, Pig and Whistle.
That are independently owned.
Yeah, but it's just not the same as it was 10 years ago. It's not a precinct like it used to be.
Yeah, it's lost all those
Yeah.
Yeah, the people that make it their own rather than just a cookie cutter venue.
But I lasted about 6 months with the Oz Venue Company, and I'd come in and done on Sunday night. I did the sound production for a Latino party. Worked all night. I was responsible for making sure that the DJs didn't get too loud, so we end up with noise complaints because that could have cost us our license. Did all that stuff all night, packed everything up, and I'm heading home at 6 o'clock in the morning after a big night, or 5:30, something like that. And I've got a message from the general manager that was there at that stage, who was a boy from one of the Oz Venue guys from Sydney. Like, can you be back in here at 8:30 this morning for a meeting? And I'm like, man, I'm so wrecked, but yeah, okay. So went home, unloaded all the gear, jumped in the car, come back into town. And I was told, look, we're down 12% on a Saturday night. It's not you or me, it's you. And I sort of went, doesn't have anything to do with this, and held my phone up to him, and it had this some DJ group from Sydney spouting off how they were going to be this amazing new club resident at Friday's Riverside. And I just said, look, mate, thanks for your hospitality and thank you for the job. Good luck with whatever it is you're doing from here on in. When these guys stuff the place up, I'm happy to come back and fix it, but it's going to cost you double. And that's always been my, like, if somebody gets rid of me, and then they want me to come back and fix it up, it's going to cost you.
Yeah, it's going to be a tax for that.
Yeah, like, I'm pretty fair with my pricing, and I always try and do the right thing by everybody.
You're a straight up dude. I couldn't find anybody that could say anything else. But yeah, for people that do wrong by you, there's a special tax.
That's exactly right.
There's a we've got a code name, the FMAT. It's the fuck me around tax. So you can slap you can slap some FMAT on top of the GST.
FMAT. I'm going to use that next time.
You can see that. But it's and you know, that was the beginning of the end of that. Obviously, the casino gets a run, and you know, if I owned an entertainment venue, I'd be horrified at what's to come, because you can just point at Sydney and see what's to come.
Yeah, well, like the club scene in Sydney, the government down there has done similar to what's happened up here, and you've only got to walk through the Cross on a Friday, Saturday night to realise that, you know, they've just killed it.
And you know, I'm actually just watching Last King of the Cross. I think it's Paramount Plus. I can't keep up with the streaming services.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, do yourself a favour. Honestly, I think I'm up to like episode 7. It's a 10-part series.
Okay,
and like, it is beautifully written, beautifully shot, beautifully cast, but it is, and you sort of see, you know, got a bit loose down there. You know, probably did take it a bit too far, but yeah, that was a whole alternate universe.
Mm. Well, we sort of had our own kind of underbelly thing happening here in Brisbane as well at some point in time, and I'm not going to go into that, but
I wasn't even going to open that door.
Know quite a few players in that scene, and it was just part of the hospitality industry. You know, you'd run into one of these guys or gals, and you're like, "G'day, mate, how's it going? What are you up to?" Oh yeah, we hired a crane and dropped a roulette wheel into the roof of a certain nightclub in the valley that we won't talk about in the mid-'80s, that police club cut the street off so they could do it. Wow. It's
well, actually, that's
all
right.
Sorts of crazy stuff.
Bathhouses and stuff. What was that? The Sir Joe days.
Don't you worry about that.
Mate, the brown paper bag days.
Yeah, I actually know one of the original bagmen as well, who actually worked in security for a long time. Very close friend of mine, actually.
There you go. Again, I'm not going to open that door.
Nope.
All those doors closed. They were a long time ago. We're not blowing the dust off. But look, you finishing up at Fridays, and I even remember that, you know, from the outside. You know, that struck me as a real pivotal moment for you, where you just sort of went, you know, what on earth is next? Yeah,
well, I wasn't too sure, because at that stage, like in 2011, we had the floods come through. At that stage, I was dealing with over 20 venues. Now, a lot of those venues didn't come back. They were gone, owing me sometimes 2 or 3 months worth of wages. So I've got all this money that hasn't come in, and I've got all these people I've got to pay. So obviously I banked up all my credit cards and just did what I had to do to survive. The first 4 months after that, my house it didn't get flooded, but the petrol station next door on Blunder Road there had 4 foot of water through it. So we had no power for 3 months. We were staying with friends. There was no income because Fridays was, the car park was full of mud. They had to actually dig the car park out. And the transformer that ran all the power for the grid in the city is under the Stanford Plaza, which was also buried in mud. So before they could get anything up and running in the city, they first of all had to go mining for it. They had to get rid of all the mud out of all the car parks. So, I had nothing coming in at that stage as well, which was a bit tough. But when the floods first hit, I thought, well, I'm not going to work today, obviously. So I got in the big truck, the big Jeep with the 360 in it. So I had that one and the one with the 302 in it, which is the blue Jeep, which is now yellow as well, just to make things. We still call it the blue Jeep, even though it's yellow. And I just spent a week and a half just running around dragging people out of the water with the truck, with the Jeep, because it had 37s on it, so there's plenty of clearance. It had a tractor motor in it, just about. And the first person I rescued was down at Archerfield, actually. An older girl. She would have been in her 60s, and she was panicking because the water had come up and was starting to come into the door sills. So I put a snatch strap on the back of the cruiser and cruiser, my tow car these days, onto the Jeep, and then got underneath, found a tow point and dragged her out of the water. And then we managed to get her car started and send her home. And she was very appreciative of that. And I thought, well, if I've got nothing else to do, I might as well go and be giving people a bit of a hand. So that's what I did for about a week or so. Just drove around with the Jeep with a snatch strap, dragging people out of the water.
That was a horrible time. That 2011 floods. And tell me if I remember correctly. Because you didn't have a shed full of gear. Was that?
Yep,
time?
Lost $190,000 worth of in one hit. I was lucky because there was some sort of a country grant or something. It was for small businesses. They gave us 23 grand, which gave me enough to be able to get back on my feet again.
To start again.
Yeah.
Because I remember that. Because you just got decimated.
Oh, absolutely destroyed. So I lost all my work. Lost out of the 20 venues, I think 6 came back. Had all these guys looking for work and looking for money that I hadn't paid them yet. And all I could do was say, look, mate, I'm going to work it off. Bear with me. And I basically tried to just get to everybody. And that's what I did, So after that, I thought, well, bugger this. I'm not doing this anymore. So I had a couple of venues still. I had Fridays. I had Normby. We were doing stuff at Chalk. Also had some DJs at Birdie Num Nums at that stage. And it's like anything, mate. It's sliding doors. Some of the new manager will come in and there'll be some sort of change of direction, or he used to be a DJ somewhere, so he knows all his friends. And we got to a point where it's like, you know what, I'm just going to play the simple life for a while and just do a couple of clubs and leave it at that. And then obviously Fridays happened. So I started doing some bits and pieces around town. I was doing enough work, just solo jobs everywhere, to keep us afloat until COVID hit. And I think it was a matter of weeks between Fridays sacking me and then COVID happening. And that's where we ended up with all of that.
And I mean, that was because again, it was so hard to watch because we were all like mate. It wasn't just the floods that sent us under, and trying to get yourself back going again. And, I remember you were out driving the trucks and you were ripping around. And you're like, "Hey, anybody need anything from Sydney?" And you were like, just calling out and going, "Right, what else can we move?" But I guess that's that entrepreneurial spirit as well, isn't it?
Yes,
mate. You just figure it
out. I'm a small businessman, and if I don't come up with new and unusual and different ideas, how am I expected to survive? So I'm driving a truck and I'll pull into somewhere and you start chatting with the guys, you're dropping off whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh, where are you going next?" And you'd be like, "Oh, I'm going here. Oh, I've got to get this to there. Oh, yeah, I could do that on the way back." And I'd negotiate a price and ended up giving Gup a handful of money when I got back from the run. He's like, "What's this for?" I did a few extras on the way through. It's funny actually. After I finished up with him, because we had that hailstorm come through Greenbank. We were renting out there for quite a while, and the house we were in got badly damaged, and the owner refused to fix the roof. Didn't work out till later, but he busted up with his wife during COVID, had a new girlfriend, and wanted to move back in. So that he was just trying to force us out. Towards the end of COVID, but we're still in COVID. Every house that was available, there's 60 or 70 people applicants, and we applied for about 40 houses before we finally found one over in Calabar. In fact, we were actually homeless for a while, for about 3 months. So we were couch surfing. I had my brother with me at that stage because we moved from there to in with him, and then his owner decided he wanted to move in with into his house. So we waited for my brother for about 6 weeks, and he had a back injury while I was helping him to get back on his feet again. He's a plumber and like for 40 years, and eventually caught up with him and went through a messy divorce and was a single dad for about 7 or 8 years. And then as the kids grew up and moved out, had a couple of his mates move in. And then when it got to a point where he couldn't work anymore, he was just pushing himself around in a wheelchair and living on rum. So when I moved in with him, he weighed 55 kilos. Now he played prop for the Bingley Bulls back in his days. He also coached his son's football team. Little Johnny is actually, he was playing down at Helensvale, I think, which I believe is a feeder club for Broncos. And, it was to a point, mate, where I reckon he was just months off not being with us anymore. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. So started getting him on some food, taking the physio and all that kind of stuff, and just getting him moving again. And he's not 100%, he never will be, but he's back on his feet and he's walking again. So, and, doing bits and pieces with his mates and, slowly but surely sort of starting to look a bit more like he did when he was a bit younger. Because there's only 18 months between us, even though I'm the eldest. But, he looks about 30 years older than I do, and he's about half my size. Yeah.
That's fine. It's also, I guess that's what I've always seen of you over all these years, is you just always do the right thing.
Well, even when we're at Oxley and Greenbank, there's always something gone wrong or whatever, and you're like, yeah, well, just come in, move in with me. And over the years with truck and DJs and the drift cars, you'd meet kids down at Archerfield. Well, what are you doing on Saturday night? Oh, I'm going to go set fire to a bus station. I got a better idea. Why don't you come out with us? I'll show you some stuff. I'll show you how to put a sound system together. And if you do a good job, I'll take you to some laps in the race car afterwards. So we probably put over 100 kids through truck and DJs, just teaching them how to do like crew for us. And then you'd sort of start talking to these kids, and it was always the same story. Mum and Dad, I reckon I'll never be anything, and I'm just a punk, and and you sort of say to them, well, what do you enjoy doing? Oh, used to weld with Dad, really enjoyed that. And you'd say, well, I was always pretty good at networking. So you'd sort of line them up with somebody that you knew who was doing something. And before you know it, you've got somebody else helping to get a job, and they're on their way, So I repeated that process
forever.
Yeah, and still do. So.
I know you do. You are one of those classic gentlemen, paying it forward. And I actually asked you before you came on this if you'd ever done a podcast before. And the answer was no. So,
no, you popped my cherry, mate.
Yeah, this is a world exclusive with absolute gentleman. And mate, I just think that that's really beautiful. And it's that quality in you, along with just your dogged determination. But like just doing things the right way, because I'm a huge fan of that. Even, and I know that you'll get it, even when it hurts you along the way, you still take the high road.
Well, look, even at, for instance, Fridays, you'd have to remember Cameron, the mad taxi driver. He'd badger me all night to play Michael Jackson. This guy was 140 kilos. And he drove taxis and silver service taxis and limos and stuff. And he was responsible for getting me home on quite a few mornings after I'd had maybe more than 3 sherbets during the course of the night. Now, he was a big fan of Michael Jackson, and he'd come and dance and do his Michael Jackson song, and people used to pick on him. And I'd be like, hey, come over here, mate. Just leave him alone. You don't know who he is. You don't know what he's going through. this is his release. He's not hurting anybody. People are cheering and having a good time with him. Don't be a dick. Same with, there was another mate of mine, you'd have to know Chris Napier.
I don't actually.
Ah, okay, Napier Finance. Another lovely, lovely chap. In the early days, he'd just go out, he's a maniac on the dance floor. And people would pick on him because of that same thing. I'd say, look, leave him alone. He ended up DJing with me and everything. So I don't like seeing people, you know, being negative towards someone because they're a little different.
As I was saying before this started, mate, all my favourite people are a little bit different. Mate, they are the spice to life.
Yeah,
as far as
well,
I'm concerned.
Let's look at my job description. Play music in a nightclub and drink all night. Not that I do, but you know, the option is always there, if you know what I mean. It's like the perfect job.
And my favourite part is I swear that you haven't aged in like 25 years.
Oh, mate.
It's funny. Like, you still look like a bloody young man for a bloke in his mid-50s that hasn't slept for 20 years.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, mate. I actually turned 57 on the 1st of May, so that's not far away, in fact. A couple of weeks.
And so you look bloody terrific. The thing, you got the face of a young man. And like, again, still pumping the bangers, not sleeping. Because after one of the things I wanted to talk about was how you ended up at, again, they'd be one of, you know, they talk about their 35 years or whatever we're up to.
40 years.
Get out of town.
40 years that club's been there.
So they've been going, well, almost as long as you have.
Yeah. I'll tell you a bit of a story about
Please.
that. When I was 16, actually, when I was about 13, I met this little girl called Lisa. And when I first started DJing, her brother was Wayne. He was gay and also a DJ, also known as Baby, who was one of the original DJs at the Beat. He was one of the original guys who showed me how to mix. So by the time I was 16, I was heading down there to the Beat and all the other clubs and stuff. And by the time I got my license and I was 18 years old, I'd already been playing in clubs for a couple of years, just bits and pieces and helping people out and learning the trade. Con Samuels was another one. He sort of took me under his wing and showed me some stuff. They used to call him the Spick. He was one of the DJs at the Trats, which is another 80s club down on towards George Street there. So, you know, I was pretty lucky. And then I met Mark Marchant, who's Mark B, who was the original DJ at Transformers, but he also worked at the Tunnel on the Gold Coast. And before all of that, he was actually working at Rogues and Underwood. So I used to go down there and give him a bit of a hand and give him a break and play a few tunes. He met me at Skateway at Mount Gravatt when I was playing there. He used to come out Sunday nights and I'd be playing all these club bangers on a Sunday because all the guys, everyone that used to go on to the clubs on a Friday, Saturday night would turn up at Skateway at Mount Gravatt on a Sunday, the Birdcage session, and I'd be playing like, you know, stuff like Boom, 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 Let's Go Back to My Room and Sex Over the Phone by the Village People, and all those big club bangers that happened back in those days. And they'd be all dancing around on the skating rink and carrying on. And that went on for until I started working in clubs, and I just didn't have the time to be able to work at the rink anymore.
Because so you now, and is it resident? I don't want to incorrectly title your. What's your current job there?
Well, yeah, I'm basically the resident DJ at the Cockatoo Bar at the Big Mega Club. So the club upstairs, which is the Pride Anthem room, and I'm playing basically handbag stuff. Things that you if you close your eyes and you think, would I be able to see a drag queen doing a show to this song? Yes, then you should play it. And yeah, I'm working with the drag queens up there as well. It's an amazing group of people I'm working with. The entertainment value is just off the charts. And I really enjoy playing up there. Like it is challenging at times because I'm playing anything from 70s and 80s disco and 80s party tracks to remixes of stuff to Whitney Houston, you know, all that kind of gear.
Can you still drop a bit of Sandstorm in there?
Oh yeah, still play Sandstorm, all the current bangers as well, like anything Rihanna, anything Ariana Grande, like anything. I even play stuff like the Veronicas, because you got to think to yourself, like what a lot of people that grew up and were, did it tough because of their sexuality and all that kind of stuff. They turned to emo music and music that they felt and it meant something to them. You know what I mean? And that's another part of like I program music when I'm playing music. I think about who's there, who's been sitting around for too long, who's been on the dance floor for too long. How am I going to get them to the bar so they'll buy a drink and we'll make a bit of money? That's the way my head thinks when I'm playing music. But on top of that, I don't like playing the same songs over and over and over again. So I used to play a 12-hour set at Fridays Riverside on a Friday night and not double up on anything. I'm doing 5 hours at the beat, and it's the same thing. I never double up, but it's like a musical journey. So you might hear a couple of things you're not too keen on, and it's like, oh, hang on, I like that one, and you're off again. And it's all about reading the crowd, the way they're moving to whatever it is you're playing, the way they're dressed, haircuts, all sorts of stuff, even age groups. It all comes into what you're sort of doing with your head to be able to work out which way you're taking the music.
And I think it's pretty sensational. Now, I'm also conscious of the fact that it's getting quite late here. It was daytime when we started. It's not daytime anymore. Hayden, if people want to follow you, or maybe you're pretty active on the socials, where can people follow you around the internet?
To be brutally honest, I haven't been real up to date with my socials for quite a while because I've just been getting myself back into some sort of direction again and getting things happening again. But I will start posting stuff fairly soon. Like we'll be at Queensland Raceway on the last weekend in April for the Superbikes. We're taking a Jeep out there, playing music and doing all the crazy stuff we do. We've got Power Play coming up on I think that's the 6th of May. And then from memory, the following weekend is Winter Jam, which is the Car Revive guys drifting event out in the drift playground out the front of Queensland Raceway. So we've got a big sort of 4 or 5 weeks coming up. Like this week will be me going through sound equipment, making sure nothing caught fire the last time we went out, and starting to pack the van to get ready to go out there. So yeah, like I'll start putting stuff up on Facebook again. I think you can also find me on Instagram. I'm not too hard to find. My name is Hadyn, Hadyn. It's a little bit of a different spelling, Butler, Butler. You can also find us in Butler Limos, because we haven't even spoken about that yet.
Well, mate, we're not wrapping up before the end of Butler Limos.
No, we're going to get to that.
I was slightly buzzed in the back of a Butler limo going, hey, can you come on my show? And then sending him a message the next day going, mate, that wasn't me just mildly lit making conversation. I actually think you're the coolest dude, and I'd just love to hear your story. So let's just pretend like I wasn't on the wind up there. Mate,
hang on. And by the way, ladies, I'm single and ready to mingle.
Mate,
let's get back to the limo thing.
He's charming. We're going to set up the Tinder. The guy's
oh God.
Butler Limos.
All right, so it would have been 2016. We're still doing a few events and stuff. We had promo girls that come out with us. And we just didn't have enough room in the cars to move everyone around. We're still driving the Jeeps everywhere. We actually drove those 2 Jeeps to Sydney with trailers behind them full of equipment to do a jamboree down there one year, which was that was an epic ride. But that's beside the point. But yeah,
that would have been horrible.
2007. It was definitely an adventure. Let's call it that. What's life if not an adventure? So the limos. I bought the first one. I made actually a mutual friend of ours, Studsy.
The man.
He said, they've got a silver Statesman, a WH Statesman limo sitting down at the yard right now, and they're trying to get rid of it. Would you be interested? And I'm like, how much they want for it? He said, it's been over the auctions about 3 times at 22 and hasn't got a bid. And I said, I'll offer him 5 and see what he says. And he's called me back 10 minutes later and said, he'll take 6. And I'm like, where's my vehicle? I'm not kidding you.
Oh, you stole that, mate. You're a burglar.
So I took it home, and we've had to do a few things to it, rain repairs, all that kind of stuff. And then it got hammered in the hailstorm, got written off, and the insurance money paid for the white car. And then I bought the wreck back, and me and the boys got stuck into it, knocked all the dents out of it, resprayed it, and that made us a 2 limo family. The Lexus came from John Tetley, who owned Queensland Raceways. It's his wife's favourite car. So he's probably in a bit of strife for selling it to me. But he called me up and said, "Oh, look, you've got a limo, haven't you?" And as I said, I bought it just to move my mates around and for basically shits and giggles. I never bought that silver car to work it. But then people started saying, "Oh, can you do our wedding for us? You know, we got this going on." I'm like, "Yeah, okay. Greg, can you take that car out and pick him up? I'm working tonight." But yeah. And that's how Butler Limos started. And then I thought to myself, when John called me and I went down and checked out the car, I'm like, "God damn, this thing is too cool. It fits in with everything else we do. You know, it appeals to my sense of humour."
Paint a picture for those who are just listening with our words of what an amazing machine this car is.
Okay. So in 1998, this is where this car came from. A young fella in Adelaide went into the Lexus dealership, bought a brand new LX 470, so the top of the range Land Cruiser, basically 100 series Land Cruiser, put 10 kilometres on the speedo, driving it to a coach workshop in Adelaide. They gas torched it in a half, and spent another 200 grand on top of the 120 they paid for that car building it. Now, at that point in 98, when it was finished, it was the longest stretch limo in Australia, 16-seater. It's a little bit old school. It's not like the Hummers with all the lights and the flashy sort of stuff. It's a bit more sort of classic. But we put a few lights and a few bits and pieces. Like when the first thing I did when I bought it was got rid of the hydraulic suspension because it was horrible. So we put heavy-duty Land Cruiser gear in. It's like riding on a cloud now. We upgraded the tyres and wheels, put a set of 20s on it with a nice set of Yokohamas, so it tracks nicely and runs nice and smooth. It's a V8 petrol. It's still four-wheel drive. And then, once we got that going, the outside done, we had to do the roof interior. 6.5 meters worth of roof interior. So it's a fiberglass shell that we had to pull out through the back of the car. So you had to lay all the seats down, pull that out, skin it, and then re-skin it and put it back up in the car. That was a bit of fun. And then the last but not least, we upgraded the stereo. So it's got Australian monitor speakers that were designed for being put in restaurants and stuff like that. They're not really big. I think they're about a 4-inch cone, but they put a lot of sound out there. Obviously, 15-inch subs in the back, just to give it a bit of the old Bristol, so to speak.
Give it a nudge, because I must say I've hired the limo once or twice for, again, just sheer comedy, because this thing is phenomenal. Because how long is it? How many meters long?
It's 8.2 meters long, and the funny thing is, like, you could drive through surface in a Ferrari. People are like, "Oh yeah, Ferrari, Lamborghini." Drive through surface in one of my Jeeps with Tonka written up the bonnet, and people lose their minds.
Yes.
You stop at the centre lights, and they run up. "Oh, is this a Hummer?" No, mate. It's a 1974 Jeep. But the wheels, I know.
This is again,
and it's the same with the limo.
No, the old cars. I don't know. I don't own anything built past the year 2000. Except for my 09 VDU that I got for $1,500.
Winning.
Yeah, exactly. That was the best buy ever. But like all my personal cars, like the old cars are what's up.
Yeah.
They're just, and that limo of yours is just so gangster. Like,
it's a cool old thing. And like, think about it for a second. A lot of people that had 100 series Land Cruisers, when the 200s came out, sold their 100 series, bought the 200, hated the fact that it was, I think there's about a ton less towing capacity for starters, and they just got rid of the 200s and went back to the 100s. They've been a popular car. Like, I only paid 10 grand from Studsy.
Burglar.
In saying that, the car was sitting in a paddock and it was full of rubbish. It was it was just being used as a spare truck, and everyone was just throwing the rubbish in the back of it, all that kind of stuff. So at that point, that would have been after the floods. And Studsy bought himself another car and he didn't want it. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do some sort of a deal. And, we came up with some sort of shifty deal. Away we went. I had a Land Cruiser. But people really gravitate towards it because it's the same shape as a 100 series Land Cruiser. So I've done quite a lot of weddings simply because the husband and wife are Land Cruiser fans. And even driving down the highway, you'll be driving along and somebody will go past and they'll slow down, they'll speed up and they'll slow down. And you think, what the hell are you doing? And they're out the window with the phone trying to get a video of the car.
Just checking it out because it looks so wild. Because it is. It's just a Land Cruiser that like, got stretched out. Like, yeah. Oh, Butler limos. Hey, how good's that?
Yep.
So the man can drive you, entertain you, and that's my favourite part. It's like, so, you know, Hadyn himself is driving. And then he'll be, what sort of night is it, guys? And then he will also DJ for you. So it's certainly, you know, it is an all-round experience, isn't it? So there's
so you'll be driving along, you look and you go, okay, yeah, it's a Sweet Caroline kind of group. And the next thing you know, the whole car's erupted in Sweet Caroline. Bom, bom, bom.
Or as we had some kids, we were going to the footy. We were taking some friends of mine, Michael and their kids. And I don't know if I can thank him for this. We've got in the car, and there's 3 kids in the car, and this bastard starts playing Baby Shark. And if you've had children, you know the song Baby Shark. If you're thinking about having children, you will know the song Baby Shark, and then you'll remember this moment and go, that song stays with you forever.
Yep.
But there we are in the stretch limo going, Baby Shark. And I mean, the kids nearly lost their minds. So, yeah.
Yep. And I'll tell you what, mate, there's so many of our group and that are having kids now too. And wow, the people I'm going to be able to lead Australia over the next 15 years is going to be awesome.
I agree, mate. I've seen a lot of promise for the future. Yeah. All right. Well, look, on that note, mate, otherwise we're going to just keep meandering for all time here. So you can find Hadyn around town, mate. Truck and DJs. He's at the Beat Mega Club 4 nights a week.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Or you can hook up a Butler limo when you need to get from place to place in style. Hadyn, you're a legend. You are an absolute, mate. You're a godsend of a human, and you know, a friendship that I treasure. So
I appreciate that,
mate. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story today, and mate, I look forward to the adventures into the future.
Indeed, mate.
Righto. Until next time, thank you for joining us.